Welcome to Nasdaq Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, global markets reporter at Nasdaq. Joining us for this segment, we have Ben Jones, senior index specialist with Nasdaq Investment Intelligence, to discuss all the headlines that we're seeing in water, how to index it, and how it performs. Ben, it's great to see you as always. Welcome back to Trade Talks.
Thanks, Jill.
All right, you can virtually index anything these days, but before we get into the Nasdaq Water Index, walk us through some of the headlines that you're seeing.
Yeah, the water headlines are not running dry, no pun intended. I mean, just given the drought that we've seen in various parts of the world, especially here in the U.S. and the West Coast, parts of northern North America, and just given some of the issues that we see in a lot of emerging markets, right? The lack of access to water, the lack of access to clean water. So you see a headline in Minnesota: this summer's drought could mean shortened, muted, or fall color season. Water stress, a global problem that's getting worse. And then what's interesting too, one of the headlines here in the United States is the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Acts of 2021, where that $1 trillion act, 55 billion of that potential proposal includes investments in clean drinking water and funding for a lot of critical infrastructure for the water industry, as well as just impacting every single person who drinks water. So it's certainly in the spotlight, which could make it an interesting theme going forward, because there's certainly interest in this theme, because if there's more investment, does that play into some of these water related companies?
All right, Ben, let's talk about some of the potential investments that are there as we look at the Nasdaq Water Index. It's not just the physical piece of water that we're indexing, but it's all the different companies that are affiliated with it.
That's right. So that's what we're interested in, Jill. We're interested in seeing how these companies that engage in the water industry, to see how they're doing, right? And so we have two indexes, that track this space specifically, through this, let's say, suite. And this is the Nasdaq OMX US Water Index and the Nasdaq OMX Global Water Index. And so what we look for here is that these companies must be classified as participating in the green economy by sustainable business. And these companies must be involved in creating products that conserve and purify water for homes, businesses, and industries. So that's what these indexes are targeting. Of course, the U.S. Water Index is going to be focused on companies in the U.S. The global one will have a global presence, so it includes the U.S. and some companies abroad. With some additional liquidity screens, these indexes are evaluated annually with the quarterly rebalance. From an industry standpoint, most of the index is going to be leaning towards utilities, but you do see some other companies from, let's say, the industrial sector or technology. From a subsector standpoint, majority of them are going to be water. That's the dominant subsector, but you see some electronic companies that are present, some agricultural companies present, as well as some pollution control. From an international standpoint, in the global index, the U.S. Has the largest weight in the global index, but you do see a European presence, and again, some emerging market companies are represented from the likes of India and Brazil.
So Ben, when we wrap up here and we're talking about the performance of the indexes, how are you benchmarking that? How well have they performed?
Yeah, they have been performing well this year relative to, let's say, a global equity benchmark. Just for the past 1 year, the U.S. Water Index is up about 36%, compared to the benchmark, which is up around 30. If you look at a short time period where I think there have been a lot of headlines, you actually see the global benchmark outperforming. It's up about 11% over the past 6 months. The U.S. benchmark, U.S. index up about 10, outperforming, let's say, its global and U.S. Large and mid cap index. Because of these headlines that certainly make it noteworthy, we've seen curiosity. We've also seen flows into these products. So there's two ETFs, that track these products. You see the Invesco Global Water ETF, PIO, and the Invesco Water Resources ETF, PHO. Flows over the past 3 years, you can see the PHO ETF has grown considerably, rising from about 878 million up to 2 billion as of now. So we do see investor interest, actually, buying these ETFs and trying to participate in this theme going forward.
All right, Ben, appreciate the insight as always. Thanks for joining us on Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, global markets reporter at Nasdaq.